Hey guys, it's Friday and I thought I would share with you some of what we've been doing in our English classes, but then also how some of those activities that I'm doing in my English classes can be adapted into a foreign language setting such as French or Spanish. It's been a long week. It was a full moon this week. My husband broke his thumb this week. Both my kids were sick this week, and we had a scare. We thought my daughter might have had the virus, but she tested negative, so we were very thankful for that. And she is getting somewhat better. So it's just been a really crazy week. And then on top of all of that, our quarter closed today. So I have all those 9 weeks grades, and I have had a lot of students who have been quarantined. And so I've been playing that whole game of, okay, is this assignment really past due? Is it, because they were quarantined, do I excuse them from it? If I miss something back at the beginning of September, do I make that student still do it? So it's just been crazy, and it's a very difficult time to be a teacher. And I know we hear that all the time, and people are like, oh, teachers have it easy because they have their evenings free or whatever it may be, but it's not easy. And if you're a fellow teacher, you know that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is one of the strangest times to be teaching, and I feel bad for those who are in their first few years of teaching because it's not normal at all. It is not, like, the classroom looks completely different from even just 3 years ago. I'm thankful that this is my 9th year teaching, so I have had normal years to compare it to. And I really genuinely hope and pray that someday that might be a thing again, but as time goes by, I'm doubting it more and more. But anyway, all of that aside, what's going on in my English classes? So we are right now reading The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I did this book with my students last year. We watched the movie and we do several different activities within this. I love this as a mentor text because there's a lot of things you can do with it. We do basic things like mood and tone, connotation and denotation in different paragraphs or in different pages. But then we also look at grammar in this book, and Suzanne Collins is a great one to look for sentence variety. And that was our lesson this week. So what I initially did with my students, I found an activity actually on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it was color-coded notes. And I thought that would be a great way to reach my students. And those color-coded notes that we did look like this. And I've kind of just followed the format that teacher posted on Teachers Pay Teachers of coloring independent clauses and dependent clauses and differentiating between compound, complex, and simple. And then I had to add in compound, complex, so the 4 sentence types. And then my students did a practice page where they had to write their own just to practice. And then I actually gave them another supplemental handout with even more examples so that even if they didn't understand this, there was another handout that they could refer to as well. And then after we did that, my students got a writing prompt. And so they got their writer's notebooks and they had to write about 1 of 2 prompts. And I actually got both of those prompt choices from my students. So they were not prompts I came up with. And I'll tell you what, out of 59 students, I only had 2 complain about the prompts. Nobody else complained. So I think the best thing to do is ask your kids what they want to write about. And their 2 prompts were, if you were to take a vacation, where would it be and why, or what's your favorite place to vacation? And then the other prompt was, if you were to write a fictional book, what would it be about and why? And so the students had to choose one of those 2 prompts and give me 1 small paragraph. But where the grammar component came in was, okay, take these notes that you just did and do 3 different sentence types. And so that was their way of taking what they were learning and applying it into their own writing. Now, here's what happened upon reflection on my part as a teacher is they could not cognitively both focus on writing a prompt and incorporating the different sentence types. And even the few students who were able to be like, oh yeah, I have 3 different sentence types, well, what I wanted them to do was color code, okay, independent clause and dependent clause, and just break it down so they could see a complete sentence versus an incomplete in their own writing. They could not do that. They could not accurately identify their independent and dependent clauses. So upon reflection for me as a teacher, I'm going, okay, so I either need to focus on just writing and content or grammar. They cannot yet marry the 2 together. Like, it is separate in their head. Like, they cannot think about writing a different sentence type or sentence variety and basic content like what's your favorite vacation spot. And if you are a teacher of a charter school or a more elite district than mine, you're probably thinking, wow, your freshmen can't do that. if you understood our area, our demographic, we just have a very tough situation where we're at, and I'm so proud of them. I know that they tried. So we're gonna work on that next week. So what I'm gonna do next week upon reflection on all of this is we're gonna play a game, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But then I'm going to work on looking at sentences in context in the Hunger Games. So I did this activity last year. It was difficult, but it worked. And we're gonna start, I think, chapter 8 on Monday. And so my students might look at chapter 8, and I'll give them one page. I'm gonna say, on this one page in chapter 8, I want you to find me a compound complex sentence. I want you to write it out, and I want you to show me the independent clauses, the dependent clauses, and the conjunctions. And then we might say on the next page, find me a simple sentence. On the next page, find me. And so I will look through ahead of time and make sure that those types of sentences are actually on those pages. And then I'll give them the page numbers, encourage them to find it, write it out. And then that way they're looking at it in a context, an authentic context like literature. The game that I played this week with them was really fun. It's called Sentence Meetup. And again, I think I found it online somewhere. And this one is adaptable easily into a foreign language setting. And I will include a couple clips of the kids playing it. Obviously none of their faces, but just like their whiteboards. So my students were given a type of sentence on the projector, like compound complex. And then they had to be with 2 to 3 other classmates. Each of them had their own whiteboard, and they were responsible for a portion of that sentence. So they were responsible for either the conjunction, the dependent clause, or the independent clause. And if it was compound complex, one of the students might have both an independent and a dependent clause. And then they would put their whiteboards together to form one complete sentence. And they had 1 minute to do it. It was very fun. It was very fast paced. And then I would quickly check the boards, make sure that they had all the puzzle pieces, which they got from their notes. And then that team would get the point that round. If all the teams got it correct, they all got a point that round. So we did that. It seemed to help clarify a little bit. I definitely still see a lot of confusion, and I know when I look at their writing, complete sentences are something they really struggle with. So next week, what we're gonna do, we're gonna play that game again. We're gonna look for sentences in context in the Hunger Games, and then I might, after we do those 2 activities, try a second writing prompt. And again, tell them, all right, give me 3 different sentence types and break them down by clause by highlighting the dependent clause in orange and the independent clause in green. And just those basics, just for them to understand the difference between a fragment and a run-on sentence. That's what's going on in English class. If I were to adapt that game into French, or in Spanish, I think what I would do is I would give them maybe a verb not conjugated on the screen and a subject, and then have them say, okay, one person choose a subject, the second person conjugate your verb according to the subject that your partner chose, and then have the third person finish the sentence to make it a complete sentence. So perhaps I would say, to avoir crayon, and then their sentence would be to des crayons, and the third person would write some pencils, the second person would conjugate avoir, the first person would have chosen the subject, and do it like that. And then in like an upper level, have them use conjunctions like and or but or etc. So that's an easy way to adapt it. I always have whiteboards in my room, and I always encourage my kids to use those whiteboards. Yes. Next week, like I said, I told you we're just doing in English. We're starting a fresh quarter on Monday, so we'll see how that all goes. I really hope that I don't have as many students quarantined this quarter as I did this past quarter. It gets so confusing. If you have a way to keep track of students and like their in and out and their quarantines and their absences and all of their work plus your regular students' work, please drop a comment below and let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time here at That French Teacher Mom Life.